Hi, welcome to our last unit, graphic novels. And so today I'm going to talk a little bit about the elements of graphic novels. We are going to talk about the story itself and the background of it. And then also give you a little explanation about the author and a link basically so you can watch the video regarding his talk that he did in the Bay Area when his novel was chosen for the book award. So American Born Chinese, some things about how to read the novel. You'll want to be looking both at the plot, the three storylines, and also some elements of graphic novels that are strategies to communicate the story. So some of the elements that you'll see here are the panels. There's a list here: panels, gutters, frames, word bubbles, sound effects, the use of the arrows, and I'll talk about that specifically, juxtaposition and intertextuality. Now, some of these are universal to all graphic novels, and some are used specifically in the authors here for American Born Chinese. So the three terms we're going to spend a little bit of time on is the idea of the panel, which is this piece here, the frame here, and then the gutter, which is the space between panels. And these are all three used and altered throughout the graphic novel to communicate different things. So for a variety, the panels can be done in different ways. Sometimes the panels are in three panels in one, sometimes there's two, sometimes there's one long one, sometimes there's one big panel for the whole page. So they can use different mixed sizes to communicate feelings. As you can see in this panel, it's really interesting. When Zhen is at the table here, we first see his perspective. And if you notice, all the kids are white, but all the kids are also kind of faded out. Like he doesn't really notice them distinctly. And that's presented by the way they're drawn. And then we see the long picture of him at the table with he's to the right a little, and it gives the sense of loneliness and isolation. And then finally in the last panel, which you can see better in the book, you get the three kids approaching him who are assuming stereotypes about his food choices and who are kind of mean, and it's shown both from Jin's perspective and then also from an outside perspective when Jin responds. So it's a way to show different perspectives, it's a way to communicate feeling, and the panels are really important to kind of pay attention to as you work your way through the novel. So gutters are interesting because it's sort of the power of negative space. And what's difficult about it is there's not, this is clearly here a gutter, and we don't say anything, the gutters don't say anything, yet it's the time period that happens in between, the lapse of time, that can create feeling or tension. It can also give us a view, just like camera work can, where someone can zoom in or take a different perspective. Similar to gutters, we can create that. So in this gutter, we get the character who's talking to Chen Qi and his cousin, and you see this gutter here. He's really upset with him, and he's yelling, and he's holding him by the shirt. But then it shifts perspective through this gutter, and then we get another one panel here with all of a sudden we start seeing a different emotional response. And then a third and a fourth. And so it shows in between the gutters are the feelings that the characters are having before they take action. And so that those are important to notice. Also frames. Frames can indicate specific things. So throughout the story you'll see some frames that are very much like this, where are just black lines. But there's a couple instances in here where you're going to see frames that have a color. So this one is a frame where his mom is telling him a story or a parable. And during that time, so that the reader knows that the story has shifted, they'll use a different color frame here and a different width as well. It's also used sometimes for flashbacks or backstory. So word bubbles, you'll notice here you see them, one of the normal aspects of word bubbles that you've probably noticed from comics is it'll be a cloud looking thing here, and the word bubble will point to who's speaking. Sometimes that person is off the frame out of the story, speaking from the other room. Other times the person, there's like a narrator, and you'll see a rectangular box at the top with narration about the scene. But word bubbles are important because that's our only dialogue and our only way of understanding sort of what's being said in the story. Sound effects are used in this novel a lot, and there's two different ways they come across. So the first way is that with sound effects you can get the internal sort of feeling that's happening with a character, which sounds funny, it's sound effects, but it's actually happening inside the character's mind. And so this is an example of one here where you have the character Jin, and he is upset and he's worried about his hair and he's upset, and so you have this like almost like electricity coming out of his hair. You'll also know that his thought bubble, he's not speaking, but his thought bubble is in color, which that happens throughout the story as well. When he's fantasizing, the color is blue. When he's sort of imagining other things, the color, when he's fantasizing, the color is pink, and when he's sort of angry or thinking, the color is blue. But here the sound effects, are written down in words, or in letters, and then they create a feeling. The other kind of sound effects, it happens in the different panels that deal with the middle story about Chen Qi, because it's supposed to be set up like a TV show, like Everybody Loves Raymond, it's Everybody Loves Chen Qi, and so the sound effects almost sound like a laugh track, something you'd see in a sitcom. Okay, and throughout the story, because Jin comes from downtown in Chinatown, his parents are from China, and then he moves to the suburbs, and so the use of language, of speaking Mandarin, is really important here. And when he is speaking in Mandarin, but they're writing this in English, they use the arrows to show that. So he's explaining, the author's indicating when someone is speaking the native tongue versus English. All right, finally, juxtaposition is important, and what that means is what happens when you put two panels or together or next to each other, and the effect it creates. And so when you juxtapose two, you sometimes put together two things that are very different to create a feeling. And so you can kind of see here, there is a first panel that is of looks like he's looking up from the trees up at the sun and walking, and then here it's juxtaposed against his thought bubbles, his fantasies. First his thought is of the girl, and then of the girl with the other boy at school, and then where he gets upset here. And so suddenly we see this third one, and there's a thought bubble of the hair, and so he thinks maybe if he changes his hairstyle, the girl will like him better. So juxtaposing these shows the thought processes that he has on his way home. Next is just a few examples of intertextuality, and that intertextuality means the text within the text. And so what this means is when they're referring to things outside, like in popular culture or music or other things, and then making reference to them in the text, and it's kind of a way to kind of be in the know when you are reading the story. So everyone loves Chen Qi, that's how it's spelled, with the accent. That is a take on Everybody Loves Raymond. There's also an Everybody Loves Chris, which came out after the book, but it's Everybody Loves Raymond. Another form of intertextuality, they were taking, the author was taking this very famous American Idol episode where William Hung, who was a Berkeley student who really had no talent singing, was made fun of and by the producers and given the opportunity to move forward and perform. And he it was sad because he did not understand how untalented he was, because they led him to believe he had talent. And so the author kind of uses that as a way for Chen Qi is singing the same song that this William Hung sang on the show, and standing up in the library, and then everyone's laughing. And so it's a kind of a nod to the idea of cultural stereotyping and appropriation, and this idea of like making fun of someone and using them as sort of bait in a way. And then here is in the last frame of the story, you'll see he's drawn the two main characters in the novel, as and dressed up as these characters here. And these two guys were kind of a short-lived internet sensation, and they would sing songs in the bathroom on YouTube, dressed alike, and they would rap. And they were actually pretty bad in some ways, but they knew it and they thought it was funny. So it was different than the William Hung case because they were owning the humor versus sort of someone monopolizing on William Hung and the stereotypes that follow behind that. So this was a good example of that I wanted you to notice. Okay, so what should you do when you're reading this? Make sure you take notes and write down page numbers, describe the panels. You can take notes on symbolism, the plot, characterization, sorry, and your feelings about the prompts. I mean the frames. So remember in the story here, there's three storylines. There's the Monkey King, Jin Wong, and Chen Qi. And so you're going to follow all three of those together. Just a second. And then make sure you take your notes in a double journal entry as you go through. And then I would look at Gene Yang's talk and to see like some background on him and how he came up with the book and some of his ideas regarding graphic novels. If you also need more help, there is an article I've posted about graphic novels that can be helpful too. So this is the last 2 weeks. Try to finish reading the novel and watch the video. If you're struggling with American Born Chinese, read the handout. And we're not going to do any peer review for this essay. And this essay is your final exam. And so there will be the skeleton. You'll see the schedule on the shell. Just follow the schedule and we're almost done. I'll be working today on your, sorry, my crazy dog. You'll be working today on your research papers. So, and if you have late work, please turn it in as soon as you can. Thanks. Bye.